It is the main course, presented by Modelo. We are talking about BYU and Texas Tech. And if anyone's asking, yeah, we know. We realized it. We tasted all week on the tasting menu, but can't all be in a moose-bouche. And so here we are with the main course brought to you by Modelo, official beer sponsor of the College Football Playoff and of this College Football Podcast. And I am very excited about this week's because we've got a defending champ, one of the great guests, recurring guests in the history of Split Zone Duo, Shehan Jeyarajah, national reporter, CBS Sports, joining us on the program. Shehan, welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been a little while, but don't worry. Between the two fan bases, I think that we'll get a good amount of Modelo drink, even if it's kind of one-sided.
Right. I mean, the average number will net out somewhere in a standard
right.
amount. Shehan, this is a huge game. The winner of this game is immediately the favorite to win the Big 12, though they will, of course, have more work to do. You have covered Texas Tech very closely. I would say more closely than anyone else in the national media, really diving in early in last offseason for a great feature at CBS Sports that we'll link in the show notes into how this roster was built. I've already talked to you about that when you were on, I believe, in the Big 12 preview. But has there been anything about how well it's worked that has surprised you in any way?
Well, I think that, look, you can have a plan. You can build a roster on paper, but I do hope that what's happened since then and the level that they've played at does give some credence to the fact that there are some pretty good coaches at Texas Tech as well, that they found a good way to deploy the talent that they have. Obviously, their defensive line is the thing that everything is built around. David Bailey, Romello Height, Lee Hunter, Skylar McGill-Howard before he got hurt. Like, this is one of the best defensive lines in all of college football. But I actually think that, their linebackers have been a huge, not even a surprise, but just a huge part of this team. And all of those guys were homegrown players. Their secondary has played really well as well. They've got some running backs after Quinton Joyner went out who have stepped up. So I do hope that this kind of emphasizes some of what we talked about over the offseason, that, this obviously is a team that brought in some big time players through the transfer portal, but this is a coaching staff. This is a roster that was pretty much ready to go as well. And they've only been able to add to what was already there.
Skylar Gill-Howard injury up front for Texas Tech. I guess this is kind of the first stress test to how that's really gonna work out with them on defense or affect them on defense. Obviously, we know what they have on the edges. Height, Bailey, great. But what they have on the interior is important. And without Skylar Gill-Howard, they are relatively weaker. But have they been able to can they, I should say, make up for that moving forward here?
Well, they've got an All-America caliber player in Lee Hunter at one of the defensive tackle spots. They have some inside linebackers and Jacob Rodriguez kind of leading the way, John Curry on the edge, who are like big-time interior players as well. So I think that they can kind of through committee. They don't have another guy who's as dynamic, I would say, on the interior as McGill-Howard. Lee Hunter is a little bit more of a gap filler than necessarily the sort of interior pass rush that maybe you got from McGill-Howard. But they do like what they have there as well. I believe that the kid's name is AJ Holmes is the guy who's stepped up and replaced them coming over from Houston. He knows Shiel Wood's system really well after playing in it last season. And I think that he's done a serviceable job of filling that role. So it definitely is a damper, but the goal here was always to have a lot of depth and to be able to withstand some injuries. And by the way, Texas Tech has had to withstand a couple of injuries so far this year, not even just Skylar McGill-Howard. And so I don't think that they're super worried about it, but obviously I think they're a better unit with him in the lineup.
Yeah, you mentioned injuries on the other side of the ball. Probably their best pass catcher, Terrence Carter, tight end, out for the season or out for a significant amount of time, I think. At tight end, they've lost him. The quarterback situation has been, I think, a little weirder than people really acknowledge, right? Like, you have Baron Morton, who got, for instance, hurt in the Utah game. Will Hammond comes in, plays really well. Will Hammond had to spell Baron Morton in a couple games, and now Will Hammond himself is out for the season with an ACL injury. It's Baron Morton's proper full show here. Can Baron Morton stay healthy, and can Baron Morton lead this team to the promised land?
Well, this was always a thing coming into the year, is that, when Morton stays upright, he's been pretty good. It's just that he's never really stayed upright through the first couple of years of his career. And I do think that, one, they've tried to do a good job of kind of balancing his workload a little bit. They're running him a little less than they have in the past. Obviously, they're trying to get the ball out a little quicker. And when you look at the transition from Zach Kittley to Mac Leftwich, I mean, Zach Kittley was more of a sort of pure air raid guy, whereas Mac Leftwich leans a little bit more spread, comes from the GJ Kinney veer and shoot concept. So a little bit of a blend of what they've done in the past. So I think that that's a big part of it, is they have tried to make things easier. I will also say a guy who they certainly hope that they don't have to throw out there, but who I think is serviceable, is Mitch Griffiths. They brought him over from Wake Forest. He had played in the past. He kind of had decided to mostly move on from football, but when he got that opportunity, actually what I had kind of been told by some people is the main reason he came to Texas Tech was actually because he felt like it might help his future coaching career. But he obviously has come in and has played a couple of snaps and looked fine. So I don't think that this is a situation where even with Will Hammond out, where if Morton goes down for a few plays, that they just revert into having to play walk-ons or anything like that, but it certainly is a damper. And I think that the other piece of this as well is that we talked about in the preseason, Quentin Joyner went out for the season, the USC transfer at running back. That's a guy that they felt like could be like an all Big 12 type player if some things came to fruition. I think that that's forced them to be a little bit more pass heavy than maybe would be ideal. They have two good running backs in Cam Williams and Jacoby Williams, but at the same time, I do think it changes the dynamic when you go from having this deep running back room to maybe you're trying to protect this running back room.
You were the reporter who drew the initial national attention to the very deliberate strategy of Moneyball quarterback, pay for everything else. I feel like this strategy has worked unbelievably well, although I might have to catch myself as it gets into December and January.
But Alex, because we've talked about this. Like, you do not have to have a super quarterback to get the job done in January. Ohio State, TCU got to the game. Georgia won 2 in a row. Notre Dame, Riley Leonard, whatever.
I won't stand for this Max Duggan slander. He was a huge part of that team.
Right, yes. But Max Duggan was not. What I'm talking about when I say what I'm talking about. All right, let's be real here.
They didn't have NFL passers, right? I mean, even like, again, if obviously ended up becoming a really good player, but like Stetson Bennett wasn't the number one pick, right? So it's like
Georgia won 2. So you can do it.
I think so it's interesting, right? There's a couple pieces of this. One, I will say they did just land the number one quarterback in the class of 2027, so maybe they're adjusting that strategy a little bit. I do think that what's interesting about this team is that, again, we've talked about their defensive line is incredible, like phenomenal. Their offensive line is very good, but I've kind of written about all off season. We've talked about all off season. It's just harder to build a line through the portal, and they have a very good offensive line, but you can't necessarily build elite through the portal the same way. So while I do think that this is a team that has been able to bully a lot of teams, I do wonder when you head into a game against BYU. I think even for stretches against Utah, like, I don't know if it's as easy offensively to just kind of make that stuff happen. I think that's also part of why they've been so pass heavy, is because they know that their biggest advantages right now are actually on the outside with a really deep receiving core, that they can go downfield, that they have a quarterback who obviously can deliver the ball at a high level. So that's something that I'm definitely keeping an eye on. And I'm really curious, especially heading into this match against BYU, one of the few teams in the Big 12 that I think can counter their offensive line, whether that impacts their game plan offensively.
Let's flop over to BYU here and talk about the Cougars. They check in, actually number 7 in the college football playoff, right ahead of Texas Tech in the college football playoff rankings, the initial ones that came out this week. Where are you at on BYU? When does just getting away with it turn into perhaps they are actually good? I would imagine it's probably Saturday night, depending on the result.
I mean, some would make the case that
Saturday
19-2
over Richard. Noon.
Yes, which kills me, but that's a whole other conversation. But I would say that there's a pretty good case that 19-2 over the course of 2 years is a pretty good representation that this is maybe a team that's a little undervalued. And look, I mean, the funny thing about it is, when you talk about the way that BYU structures their team and their game plan, like, you almost have to compare it to Iowa. They want to manage games more than they want to put away games. And I think that there are certain times where I have issues with that, where I'm like, just lay the hammer, man. There's that West Virginia game a couple of weeks ago where they only win 38-24, but like they dominated that game. They obliterated West Virginia, but they just kind of parked the bus and we're like, all right, let's not run up and it's like, well, sometimes you actually do want to do that. Sometimes you do want to put the game away so you don't put yourself in harm's way. But all that to say, I think that this BYU team is very good. I think that, frankly, because of what I kind of talked about, the analytics underrate them a little bit. Heading into the week, I don't know where they're at right now, but I believe that Texas Tech was number 4 in the SP+, Utah was number 7, and BYU was number 19, at least
16.
Last.
They are 16 now.
16 now. So,
but
again,
top
they're
25 in every phase. Like, no discernible big weakness here.
Well, they are literally 25th on offense, is what I know.
Well, and I think that this is what's interesting, right? So I'm doing a story that's coming out on Thursday on Bear Bachmeier, the quarterback over at BYU. And one thing that Kalani Sitake acknowledged was like, yeah, we really wanted to give him as little as possible to start and build on itself. So like when you look at some of their early performances where they're only winning by X amount, it's like they're not even really leaning on the quarterback that much. They're not even passing the ball that much. They're just like, let's control the controllables, let's limit the variables and kind of ease forward. I think that if you look at their last, I think it's 3 games, Arizona, Utah, and Iowa State, you've seen a team that is starting to put the hammer down a little bit. And I think that has the ability to put the hammer down to maybe a little bit more of a level than people realize. Last year when we had this conversation about BYU, they were, like you said, I mean, top 25 and everything, but they weren't excellent at anything, right? There was no stat category where they were among the national leaders or Big 12 leaders. Well, that's changed this year. They have a top 10 rusher in LJ Martin, who apparently is likely to play in this game.
He's gonna go
Yeah, they have Isaiah Glasker, who I think will get All-American consideration at linebacker. They've got a quarterback in Bear Bachmeier, who I think competes with any true freshman in the country right now. Like, they have legitimate players who are stars at different positions. Chase Roberts, by the way, at wide receiver, I think is a big-time player. So, like, I think that they have more stars on this team in 2025 than they did in 2024 in terms of guys who can change the game in an instant. The other thing that I'll say as well is that, I mentioned that I feel like they're going to match up pretty well with Texas Tech's offensive line and maybe be able to cause some issues. Well, I think that the other thing as well is that I actually think that they maybe have the ability to spread the field on offense in a way that we haven't necessarily seen to this point, especially against a defense like Texas Tech. I mentioned Chase Roberts. I mean, one of the most underrated receivers in the country. They have playmakers at tight end. They have other speed playmakers. Like, they have a lot that they can attack you with offensively, and they haven't even really tried as yet to this point, maybe outside of that Utah game. So I think they're going to come with their A game, and I definitely think, the line's like 10.5. I think that the models are going to be pretty off about BYU, even if Texas Tech wins this game.
Dude, also, you mentioned countering the offensive line for Texas Tech. BYU's linebackers are so
we talked about Jack Kelly a couple weeks ago,
dude,
man.
It's also Isaiah Glasker. BYU fans sometimes get sensitive about this, and like when I say this dude's a grown ass man, in part because he did a mission. He's 23, and like, look at his headshot on BYU's website, and like look at his mustache. Like, this dude is an adult. Like, he could be in his 3rd year in the NFL, and
I'm not touching all of this. I disavow.
I'm not criticizing it either. I'm just saying, like, they got grown ass men at linebacker who are just like, I mean, seriously, go look at his headshot, man. Like, he looks like he's been in the NFL for 10 years. Like,
and by the way, I will also mention Jack Kelly started his career at Weber State, played under their defensive coordinator Jay Hill when he was head coach there. So he's been in this defensive system for like 5 years at this point.
Yeah, I mean, they just have guys like this, so they hit. I mean, they really hit. John, this is not a pick show. We demand no pick. But do you have any? I don't even say lean, but any
just ask him to pick the game.
I can pick the game, guys. It's all right. It's all right. I have to pick it at like 8 different places. I'll pick the game.
Pick the game.
So this is a really interesting matchup, right? I think that you're in a situation where, again, Texas Tech is the more desperate team. If Texas Tech loses this game, their pathway to making the Big 12 title game and college football playoff is more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, we could see this game rematched in the Big 12 championship game.
I think we will, in fact. But I think that, it's the biggest game in Lubbock since 2008, since the Michael Crabtree game against Texas. It's kind of the big prove it game for Texas Tech in a lot of ways. And I think that also, I think Texas Tech is just a little bit of a better team. Again, not the 10 points better that Vegas has them, but I do think that they are a better team. If they were on a neutral field, I think Texas Tech is a better team. I think that they have more elite guys at different places. I think they have the most elite unit in this game in their pass rush. But again, BYU's going to come at them with a lot. Like, they have not had to reveal hardly anything through the first half of their season. And I think that they're going to come to the table with a lot out there. I think that having a dual threat quarterback in Bear Bachmeier is a big deal. I think he's a very physical runner. LJ Martin playing, I think, is huge for this game. I don't think they'd have much chance in it without him. I'm going to take Texas Tech, but this is going to be a very low scoring game. This is going to be a very close game. Give me something like 24 to 18 or something like that.
Frankly, I think Texas Tech wins and covers. I think Texas Tech bows up on defense and BYU struggles.
Yeah, I think this could be a backdoor cover situation personally. Like, I think that's probably, the sort of late touchdown that puts it away, that sets Lubbock on fire. Again, it kills me that we're going to be doing this at 1:30 local time. Like, come on. I want to see the Michael Crabtree play at 9 p.m. I don't want to see it at 2 p.m.
Yes.
How
about the Big 12 getting the big noon treatment, which for the fans sucks. Not what you want. This is an Ohio State problem.
It's not even the Fox game though. I think it's an ABC game. Like, it's not even, you're not even getting Big Noon as part of it. Yeah.
Wow, that's ridiculous. Oh wait, they're getting game day. Excuse me.
Yes, they are getting game day. And fans have been camping out since Sunday night. I'm heading down to Texas Tech Thursday morning. I'm excited to go and catch up.
How do you get there? What's that? Because Lubbock ain't closing anything. What's the deal there from the broader DFW area?
Yeah, it's not hard. So there's two ways to kind of do it. There's like the scenic route, and then there's the interstate route.
Scenic to Lubbock is one way to put it.
Hey, you pass by a lot of trees and then they're gone, but you do pass by some trees. So kind of the easiest way is to go I-20 west, and then you hit a road like near Snyder that then you kind of go off on a highway basically. But it's not hard. I mean, it's a really easy drive. It's one of those where you're driving 75 miles per hour, but it just keeps going, So
that is that's one of my favorite things about Texas, the speed limit being 75 or 80.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I'm saying 75 because I'm lying that I'm going the speed limit.
Right. But something else, Shahan, that I would say, I'm gonna give it to the Texas state government on this one. Your license plates, no frills.
No frills. No, they keep it simple. They keep it simple.
I don't need pictures or whatever on the plate.
Show me the
especially
number. Especially as somebody from Maryland, I know that you guys must have some mess up there. I know that you got the flag decals going everywhere.
The Maryland plates, yeah, I had one of those on my car for years. Anyway, so license plates in Texas, nicely designed. This is not a place to be artistic.
No, but it's an easy drive. It's one of those drives that definitely. I like to do it when it's light out because, again, nothing's going to happen. You're my car works. Don't get me wrong. But it's one of those things where it's if it's 10:30 p.m. and I break down, I just assume I'm going to die. There's no
You're at least
there's
sleeping
nothing
out there. Ain't nothing out there.
Yeah, there's no cell service. No, man. I do this drive during waking hours. And the other thing as well is that, I don't know. I've just always hated bugs. And once you start getting to 7, 8 p.m., you are driving through waves of moths and mosquitoes hitting your windshield. So I'm let me do this in the daytime before they come out.
It is the biggest game in Texas Tech's recent history, going all the way back to the Crabtree games. The tortillas might not be flying, but the good football will be. It's the main course presented by Modelo. Shahan Jayaraja, CBS Sports. Shahan Jayaraja, thanks for joining us here, brother, on this one. Thanks for joining us for the tasting menu as well here on Split Zone Duo. We appreciate it.
Thanks for watching this clip of our podcast. You can listen to the complete episode by clicking the link in the description or by visiting splitzoneduo.com. We put out new episodes every week, and we have bonus episodes for splitzoneduo.com subscribers.